Okay, so this is a quick run through of the full importing and rigging and animating a character in Morphin. The developer felt the app is pretty close to final, so he said I should try making one of these videos. So this is the character I'm going to work with. I assume a lot of people will be coming from Nomad, the way that I come from Nomad. But what I wanted to show was when I imported this character, this shows something straight away that I probably should have fixed up, and in fact I will fix up. We can see that I've got the arms of this character sort of sitting too close to the body. And if I look a bit lower, you can see that the ankles here are a bit too close together as well. That's not ideal. It makes it hard to adjust the weights of the bones. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll use this as a chance to go back into Nomad and show how I prep these characters to pull into Morphin. So if I go back over to Nomad, you can see that what I've done here is I have moved the arms away from the body a bit. So to do that, I've used the drag brush over here, and I've used the filter with this connected topology mode active so that I can move the wrist and it doesn't affect the body, which is quite useful. What I'll do is I'm going to delete this one because this is the one that I made earlier. I'll go back to this proper one. So here's my high-res mesh. The arms have been fixed. The feet have been separated a little bit. Maybe I could do that a little bit more like that. And so this is a character ready to go. It's worth pointing out, though, that this has three separate meshes. So I've got the eyes as one, the body as one, and the shorts as a separate mesh. And the actual resolution of the mesh is quite high. So the ideal for working with Morphin is that we have a single mesh that's not too high res, and ideally all of this color information, which at the moment is painted into the vertices, that's actually textures baked into the UVs. So to get that set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate all these meshes, combine them, decimate them, generate UVs, bake some maps. So I'll take you through that now quickly. So I'm going to choose all these meshes, I'm going to clone them, and then I'm going to immediately join them. So now this is a single mesh with all those parts. I can hide the others for now. I'm going to sort of rename this, so I'll just call this one mesh, and I'm going to decimate it. So at the moment, this is this is 219,000 polygons. We want to aim for something substantially less. So I'm going to use under this menu here. So normally where you'd have multi-res, I'm going to go across to MISC, and I'm going to click this decimate button, which will reduce the poly count down by half each time I click it. So I'm just going to keep doing it until the mesh looks sort of low enough to be friendly for animation. So that's about 4,000 you can see there. That was pretty good, but of course all the texture details gone. Let's fix that. So to do that, first thing I'm going to do is generate some UVs. So I'm going to press this unwrap button here. So now we've got UVs, and then I'm going to have Nomad bake the texture information from these other meshes into this one. So now that I've turned them all back on again, I can go back over to here, and I'm going to go down to this menu here, bake texture from high res, let it think for a bit. And now if I hide the other meshes, you can see we've got this nice low res frog, but it has nice clean texture detail. So this is what we'll export. So I'm going to go to the file menu, down to export down here, going to pick the GLTF formats, going to include only the selected mesh, and I'm going to export the normals, the tangents, and the textures. I think I only really need the normals and the textures, but I'll just do it all. Export, save to files, and I'll call this one frog3. I've recorded this a few times. Okay, so now that's exported, we can jump over to Morphin, and I'm going to reset my scene. So I'm going to use this menu here. I'm going to go new, and I'm going to go back to the same menu and go import, and I'm going to load frog3. So you can see this is 2.5 meg, so it's nice and small. You go open this dialog, I'll hit OK, and you can see we have a frog with the hands now a bit further away from the body. Again, ideally I would put it out flat, but yeah. All right, so what you'll also notice is the lighting in Morphin tends to be a bit too bright for Nomad models. So I'm going to use this last menu here to lower the exposure, lower the brightness. So like 4.5 feels pretty good. Also going to turn off this blurry background. So same menu and go down to this option here, and enable HDR and turn that off. And I'm going to go back to the top of this menu, and change the color down to something a bit less distracting. All right, so we're good to go. So the first thing, we're going to make a skeleton. So the way that works in Morphin is it's kind of similar to Blender if you've used that. So I'm going to use this menu here, and going to go down to Rig, and that will make us a bone. So I'm going to use this bone as the hips to start with. So I'm going to slide it back and get it sort of roughly where the hips would go, so about there. And then I'm going to use the purple ring to scale. So I'm going to scale it down to say about there. So the top of it is where the spine will start. So that feels pretty good. Now I'm going to make a new bone. So with bones, you've got a choice to either make a new bone, which is at the center of the rig, or a new bone, which is a child of the current bone. So that's one that I'm going to use. So I'll do that. And you can see it makes me a new child bone. So I'm going to scale this up to become a spine. It's a bit too high, put about there. Make a new child bone of that, which will be the head. Okay, so that's the base of that done. Now I'm going to make the legs and the arms. So to do that, I'm going to choose the hips, and I'm going to make a new child bone of the hips, which puts it in the same place as the spine. But I can use this blue handle, and I can drag it out so that this is a free-floating bone to represent the leg. So I'm going to put that sort of where the start of the leg would go, about like that. I'm going to rotate it down so it points towards the knee. I'm going to look at it from multiple angles. That's a bit too far forward. Scale it up, rotate it towards the knee, move it back a little bit. So it's always like a bit of adjusting from multiple angles to make sure this works. I think it's the wrong position on this side. If you want to rotate purely just in perspective to the camera, you can use this outer yellow handle. So I'm going to use that just to correct that way. And that now feels maybe a little bit that way. And correct a little bit. Let's assume this is good enough. Excellent. Make a child bone of that. Actually, what I'll do also is I'm going to rotate this so that's the blue arrow is pointing sort of straight up along, I guess, the top of the thigh. The reason for that will be apparent that when I make a child of this bone, like that, now I can rotate that purely around the x-axis, this red axis, and it should sort of sit properly. So I rotate that back so that it points back towards the ankle. Although I've not modeled this character very well, so the leg, the thigh, and the calf bone are sort of bent. But I'll just compensate for that a bit by rotating that this way a bit. We'll scale it back so it goes to the ankle, like that. Cool. Make a child bone of that to become the foot. Rotate that to point towards the toe. Rotate it this way so it points toward the middle of the toe, and scale it up so it captures most of the foot, and bring it down this way a bit. Okay, so that's the leg done. Handy feature in Morphin that I can clone and mirror joint chains. So if I choose the top of the leg and use this clone button over here, I'm going to tap that, and we're going to select the hierarchy, and I'm going to mirror it across the x-axis, and hit clone. Because it has to make sure the names are all unique, it asks you, do you want to append something? So because I've actually drawn out the, what is that? That's the screen right, so it's his left leg. So this mirror will be his right legs. So I will append with that suffix. To check what's going on there, this button up here, if you tap it, brings up the outliner. So you can see that I've got bone 4 and then bone 4R for these other joints. Ideally, everything will be named quickly, but I'm just trying to move, everything will be named properly, but I'm trying to move quickly. Right. So let's move on to making the arm. So I'm going to choose the spine, make a child of that, drag it to where the shoulder is, make sure it's lined up on the shoulder from this view, then rotate it down to point towards the elbow, scale it back. So scale it back to about, say, there. Make sure it looks good from a few different angles. Just rotate that way a little bit. Okay, that's good. Make a child of that. Rotate that down towards the wrist. Check how that looks from multiple angles. Let's maybe just tilt this way a touch. That way a touch. A little bit shorter. Child of that. And we will rotate that to point towards roughly where the wrist is going. Again, if I had modeled this in a proper pose, it would be much easier, but I just wanted to prove the point that you can make do with almost anything really, if you're careful enough. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to clone that. So clone hierarchy across X, change the suffix. Okay, so that's our skeleton set up. Now the next step is we want to attach the polygons, the mesh, to this skeleton. So to do that, we have to tell Morphin which mesh to use. Luckily, we only have one mesh. So we go up to the outliner, and I go find the mesh, which, if you remember, we called it mesh back in Nomad. So there it is there. So I'm going to press that checkbox there to select it. And then finally, we tell Morphin to bind it. So to do that, we use this button down here, bind. So press that, and I'm just going to go with the defaults for now and press auto wait and bind down here. And after a bit of calculation, that's now done. So to test that, we can now grab any one of our joints and we can rotate them and see what's happened. So you can see that the arm has been attached, but you can see that because of how badly I posed this character back in Nomad, the app has got a bit confused because it doesn't know any better. So it has attached some of the hand onto the hips. And I'm sure if I went through and did some of the others, you'll find other things that are going strange. But that's okay, because we can fix that. So whenever you need to reset the pose back to its default, you can press this button down here. So if I press that, it resets. So what we'll do is I'm going to use a trick I used in other packages where rather than sort of manually mainly just like to try and move things by hand, I'm going to keyframe some values so that I can just like slide the timeline to move the limbs in and out. I find that quite handy. So I'm going to choose this bone, for example. I'm going to hit keyframe, I'm going to move to say frame 10, and I'm going to move that out and keyframe. So now I can just move the timeline and see what's going on. So to start with, let's try and fix up this hand. So that particular point of the hand should probably belong to the hand joint, to this one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this tool here, this paintbrush, which is the weight paint tool. So I'm going to do that. The view looks like this, but this shows you a heat map of how much that bone affects all the polygons of your character. So you can see here that while most of the hand is red hot, so that's being mostly affected, these points are being left behind. So what I can do is I can use my brush here. I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller, and I'm going to paint some value here. And once I have that done, I can hit apply up here. And suddenly the weight is there. And I can keep sort of scrubbing back and forth to check how it's going. So that's actually looking pretty good. So I'm going to hit exit and fix up the next problem. So doing this, I can see that this part of the body is being picked up too much by the arm. So this should belong to the spine. So I'm going to choose the spine, choose the paintbrush tool, and I'm just going to paint in some more value. I'll make my brush a bit bigger. So that should all be red like that, and apply. And as I scrub back and forth, you can see this it's now coming down across the back here. It probably needs some more. Hit apply, and you can see that's done it. Exit. And so I'm going to go around the rest of the character and just quickly paint up everything that is looking a bit strange. So I might do the same keyframe trick for this leg. So I'm going to keyframe, move to frame 10, move the leg out, and whoop, you can see I'm leaving some of the toes behind. That's easy to fix. So I'm going to choose the foot, paint, quickly fill in the rest of the toes, apply, and look, and that's now fixed. Hooray! Exit. I'm going to guess the other foot will be similar. So keyframe, frame 10, and out, and yes, it's doing the same thing. So I'm going to choose that foot, paint, fix up the toe there, apply, and let's have a look. That's better. Cool. Let's check the other arm. So I'll grab the arm, keyframe, move to frame 10, drag it out. Yep, and this hand's doing the same. That's fine. We'll fix that. So I'm going to go to the hand, paint tool, use a smaller brush, and just fix up this little bit here. Apply. How does that look now? That's pretty good. Exit. Fix up the spine on this side. So paintbrush. And use a slightly bigger brush like that, and just quickly fill in this side around here. So you can see, obviously, you can spend lots of time fixing. I'm just going to go quickly for now and apply and exit. And let's see what we get. Okay, so that's probably nearly good enough. It's always worthwhile just to check sort of moving every joint, just in case things are sort of behaving strangely. So if I move that back and forth, that feels pretty good, although you can see the head is doing strange stuff. That's fine, I'll fix that. Moving the hips should be fine because everything should be weighted to something, so that's fine, apart from you obviously can see a bit of the head there, so we'll fix that. So as always, I'll hit the pose button to reset, and let's go look at the head. So I think we already know this problem, so I'm just going to go straight into paint mode, and you can see, yes, it's missed a bit of the cheek there. So I'm going to quickly paint up the cheek, and you can see that the tip of the nose, it's a bit orange, whereas that should really be weighted completely to the head. So I'm just going to tidy that up a bit like that. So I'll just make sure it's all fully activated by the head bone, like that, and apply and exit. Okay, so that's pretty much a rigged character. The other thing that you can do if you're so inclined, these tools are still in development, is to check how things are sort of softly mixing between points. So you can see that actually doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty good if I straighten up that. What if I straighten out this? Okay, but you can see here that the hand bone is probably affecting too much down the length of the wrist. So let's just fix that up again. My preference, just from doing this in other packages, is to always sort of paint up values, never to try and paint down. So I'm just going to take all these points through here that should be completely weighted to the wrist, and do that. Look from the other side. So that's pretty good. Apply and exit. The other thing you can do is you can have you can control sort of mixing and blending. So you can see here that looks pretty good generally speaking. Let's see if I can show this off some more. So what I can do is I can try and sort of blur and mix some of the weight of this bone back onto the chest. So to do that, generally, so there's two ways. One is I can do it manually by going add, and rather than sort of completely replacing a lot of strength, I can set the amount I'm going to paint really low with a fairly small brush, and I can just sort of touch in small amounts of weight like that, and then hit apply. So now if I drag back and forth, you can see that a bit more of the chest is moving there. Another way that works, that is mostly working, I think it just needs a bit of extra love, is this average brush, which does a bit of a smooth. So if I apply that, it just does a bit more of a correction, and it's all a bit softer. Okay, so that's the bulk of that done. A feature which is a bit of a work in progress, but it's still quite handy, is all this thing where I am sort of animating values by hand, just grabbing joints and rotating them. That's forward kinematics. What you can also do is you can use inverse kinematics, where you can say to a bone, this is your target, and always try and aim to this target, and all the other bones will kind of compensate. That makes more sense to see it rather than to explain it. So for example, if I wanted to grab this character's hips and move it up and down, but leave the feet on the ground, at the moment, everything moves together. But what I can do is I can go back to the default pose, then I can choose a foot and go to this button over here, marked IK, press it, and I can say, I'm going to make an effector. So I'm going to press this button here to say make an effector of this bone, and then apply. And now we get this little light blue box on that foot. I'm going to do the same for the other foot. So I'm going to choose that foot, press the IK button, set as an effector, and apply. And now, if I move the hips, you'll see that the feet try to stay locked to the ground, which is pretty cool. You can see that if you play with it too much, it starts to get broken where the IK system doesn't know which way the legs should bend. There is a trick. So if I press the pose button again to reset, you can tell the IK system to only bend the knees on one axis. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one of the IK handles, go back to the IK thing, press this CCDIK settings, and say that this bend axis here is only on X. Exit out and do the same for the other one. So choose the other effector. Just make sure I choose it like that. Go to IK, CCDIK settings, and the bend axis is only on X. Then exit out. And so now, if I play with the hips, this is only bending in X, but it's bending in X the wrong way. So I'm going to go back to the pose, choose the effector again, back to IK, back to settings, and this time hit flip so that it knows that it can only bend on the other axis. Exit out, choose the other effector. Same things, IK, CC, DIK settings, and hit flip. Exit out. And now the knees are nice and controllable, which is really cool. So we're basically ready to keyframe here. So what I could do is I could set some keyframes. So obviously down here is your timeline, and the yellow bars indicate keyframes. So usually if you just tap directly on a yellow key, you bring up a menu, and in this case I want to delete that key. And I'm going to select the arms and grab that key and delete it, and grab this other key, the other arm, and delete the key at frame 10 as well. So now we're back to nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the hips, and I'm going to press this button down here. I should have mentioned that before. So this button sets a keyframe. So I press it, and I'm going to go down at frame 6, down to there, and I'm going to set a keyframe, then back up at frame 12. Keyframe. Then at frame 20, down again, and then at frame 28, up again. Maybe even go taller, like that. Okay. If you need more frames, these buttons down here determine the start and end. So rather than say 30 frames, I might give myself say 60 frames. So now I can rewind, and I can play back from here. And that is not working for reasons. The IK stuff is an active work in progress. Assume that that'll be fixed by the time of release, but I can scrub through here and you can see that that's all working. What I might also do then is I might animate the arms so that as the body goes down, the arms go out. So I might keyframe it there, and then at frame 6, put the arms out and keyframe it, and then when it goes back up to there, keyframe it to go back down again, and back there again, arms out, maybe up that way, and back down to there. I didn't press the keyframe button, or did I? Oh, I did. So you can see, it's got pretty basic keyframing, but it totally works. Again, the keyframing system is going to be improved. There's no graph editor yet. I know that's one of the developers' many to-do list stuff. But I think in terms of version 1 of just like a straight, fun, simple keyframing tool, it's working really, really well. And I've been able to make some really nice, fun things with it. So I hope that helps. I hope for any beta testers who will get to this soon, or version 1 testers, this will be useful. Yeah, any questions, ask me questions on the Discord.